We are.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. What is been determined to be the last meeting of the Brown School Reuse Ad Hoc Committee. So just a little bit of recap as to how we got here or where we are. We have a document in front of us that is a draft outline for the requested information. And so what we're going to do, since there were some edits made from the last time we met, we're going to go through those edits. We'll open that, then we'll discuss it within the body, then we'll open it up to public comment. We'll take those comments, we'll close that, we'll go back to the body and see what they want to discuss the public comment, and then we'll go from there. So if we could have a roll call and call the meeting to order, that would be great.
Sure. We have a couple of counselors remote, so I'll just ask them to confirm that they're in attendance. Counselor Donahue.
Here.
Counselor Zeid.
Here.
But I believe we have Counselor Wright as well.
No, it's not a
Who's remote? Not in the, yeah, okay. Sorry, Counselor Vogel.
Present.
Counselor Preston. Karen and Madeline are both here from the Housing Trust. Andy Port, Director of Planning and Development. I believe the mayor's not here this evening, and we do have Joe Devlin.
Joe's not.
Okay, sorry, I thought we had Joe.
No, and then Byron is all right, so with that, I'd like to open it up to the body and ask if there are any thoughts or insights or questions about what we have is the amended, if you will, or the updated outline from the last meeting. Anybody have anything that they want to add? I just said, yes, we're gonna do this, see how the body feels about it. And we'll open it up to public comment, and we'll close it, and then we'll bring it back to the body to discuss further what we've heard.
We do have Counselor Zeid.
Okay, Counselor Zeid.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure what you'd like me to do, but I sent over some red lines that I had made to the document prior to the meeting. I can go over those if that's the intent of this meeting, but if you're looking for broad comments, I just want to reiterate some of my concerns that I've had. I think there are a number of things in the RFI that need refinement, and some things that seem to be incongruous in terms of level of specificity. In other words, some things have specificity and others don't. And the last thing I want to say is just that I just want to continue to raise my objection that I think there is potential harm in sending out an incomplete or sort of not well vetted out RFI, because the market potentially only want to listen to something so many times. And I just have felt for some time, as most know, that I just think there's more opportunity for us to refine what the public position is of the city of Newburyport before going out to the market. So those are my broad comments. In terms of more specific, I did, again, redline with some suggestions in an effort to try and help be more productive in terms of the document itself. So I'll yield with that. Thank you.
So if I may, those came in to us today, did they? Okay.
They did. Yeah, I apologize. I got them last night, I think, when everybody did, and I tried to turn them around as quickly as I could.
Right. So as the process is going to go and talking with the council president, the idea is to get the input to this document that we have in front of us, this draft outline, this updated draft outline that was revised essentially on 2/21, and do what we can with it in this setting. And then we're going to hand it off to the planning director, but at the same time, it's going to come into the packet tomorrow. And essentially we'll go to general government and the committee of the whole, and then the whole body, the whole city council, then at that point we'll have an opportunity to continue to further work on the draft outline, and therefore the final product that the planning director will come up with from that. Does that make sense to everybody? Is there questions about it at all?
Comment, not a question.
So you go ahead.
I have several. So firstly, I really like that. I think our possibilities for being successful with the adaptive reuse of the Brown School, i.e. getting to a place to do something with the Brown School, I think having a much better chance if we get more blessing within the full council than just really doing. So I'm really glad you, first I've heard that change, and I'm really glad you did. Secondarily, just one opinion here, personally, if point of public comment is for us to take that under consideration as we think about and deliberate. I personally would like to give public comment prior to us deliberating, but just want to go there. And then thirdly, yeah, looking at the RFI as it has come across to us. So, you know, my major concerns throughout the document, and may sound harsh, I don't feel like the whole thing is usable in any stretch. But my concerns are that we went into this process with the RFI to sort of throw it out in the world and see what came back to us. And I do feel, this is using the analogy, I use a really painful analogy about Santa Claus and meeting us. But for those of you who are there, you try to play on time. You know, I feel like in ways we're leading the jury here in places. And again, the idea is to send something broad out into the universe to see what comes back to us. So where we are leading the witness or leading the developer in a particular direction. And so that's going to be the nature of my comments, but until we get into specifics.
So if I could just respond quickly, the idea of putting it out there to the universe. So first of all, at the very beginning of this process, the idea was made clear to get something done, right? To get something out there, because it has been said, or I have said it over and over again, that it's the marketplace that's going to drive this. And we can put out our wish list all we want and so on and so forth. But I think we're getting to a really good spot where we at least have the information down on paper as to what it is we want to hear about and what it is that we want to see. And there will be plenty of opportunity as we go along before, I mean, there'll be plenty of opportunity for more input as the RFI gets drafted, well, first of all, the outline gets drafted, then the RFI gets drafted, and then it goes out, and then it comes back in, and we can take a look at all of it. There's going to be ample opportunity. What we needed to do is we needed to get off the square one. And I believe that that's where we are now. So was there anything specific? Is anybody, I have Councilor Z's up his red lights sort of up here, I guess.
Councilor, if I could, I just wanted to note for the record that Councilor Lane has joined remotely.
Hi, Byron.
Yeah, I do have my hand up, but whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, I'm going to go around the room with your comments of it. If you'd like to add, please.
I have a couple. One is on the second page, in the private financing. Where we say provide preliminary pro forma, including sources and uses of funds. I feel like that is going to the way it's worded, and that's really an acquisition value. And I'm not sure we want that in use responsibility. I mean, this, my understanding with RFPs, sponsored RFPs, is that we bid or offer purchase price is field in the envelope and is separate from the rest of the submission. And I don't understand how the form, fits into that protocol. So what I would suggest is place that in something that actually something more generalized, like list your potential sources of funding and the anticipated total development costs or something like that. It avoids that. It seems to avoid them specifically saying that the purchase price is it. So that's a suggestion. The other thing is
I don't understand this, sentence on the first page. Where it says the city is open to doing contract based on a fee interest sale of surplus property.
I have the same question.
I mean, I'm used to the phrase a fee simple purchase, which is in contract to something like ground lease. So if that's what I'm saying, that we anticipate this being a sale rather than a ground lease, then it's fine, but I just wasn't clear. And, the fact that that sentence followed by, the sentence that was total assessed value of 2 million. It seems to be suggesting that is the anticipated sale price. And, you know, the fact that those two sentences are right next to each other, it comes to be leading the reader in that direction. And as I've said, I'm sorry for at this meeting, if the city wants to create affordable housing with funding from the state, we are going to be asking the state for millions of dollars. And in a very competitive field where other developers are also asking for millions of dollars. And I don't think we'll be successful with respect to sell. It really would need to be, from my perspective, as someone who feels for the affordable housing development funded by the state, need to be the city of Newburyport donate the school to accomplish the goal of meeting our community needs, which can include housing, other things. So.
I have, so if we could get to that one particular point about, or the 2 points, actually, let's start with the page 1. Andy, you wrote this.
Sure. Do you want me to speak to any of
Yes,
those?
please.
Sure, and I'll just, for the benefit of those who might be a little remote, folks can see this. Yeah, so I think the first question there was about fee interest sale. I think fee interest is also a commonly used term for the fee interest ownership of the property or a portion of the property that we dispose of. I think it's fine to say fee simple. I don't think that's necessarily an issue to make that adjustment here. I think it's logical, it's fine. I don't think there's any issue with that. As far as the pro forma side of it, I would tend to agree that looking for a preliminary pro forma is a little bit, maybe too much detail to be expecting at this level. But I do agree that getting as much information about sources, and this goes to a point that Councilor Zito previously made about whether or not the proposers might be looking for city funds to be assisting in some way, whether it be CPA or housing trust or others, might be helpful to know that as well. So I think there's some benefit in knowing where funding sources might come from in general and what the overall order of magnitude of the costs, expected might be here. Again, this is very early and preliminary for everybody. And then as far as removing the assessed value, it is sort of a matter of record. I don't know. I understand, the relationship between sequencing them there. We certainly could remove it from this. A lot of folks will probably be looking to that information one way or the other anyway. And I do agree with the latter point that in order to make affordable housing work on this property or work here, not atypical, we probably will have to essentially subsidize that project by not necessarily selling it at the full value, at least, if not, some reduced value. Certainly not the assessed value or some appraised market value. So I think there's logic behind the underlying concern.
Can I just check? How about if we move the assessments? I think Madeline's point is realistic, especially given the references into building. How about we move the value statement?
Yeah. So, pardon me, just 1 minute.
That we need.
In terms of process, how does the body feel about the idea of taking these points sort of one by one and moving on them? Would that work? And we can just kind of do it as like that. What does everybody think of that? Councilors on remote?
I think the challenge is Councilor Z reading his red lines.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But I mean, like, just I think that a lot of these red lines we can kind of go through them also if we wish. But I mean, we certainly have to give them some consideration, of course. But Or we have the opportunity to take all of these notes and bring it into the general government committee and the committee of the whole and go through it there. Or we can do these, some of these are easier than others, so to move that down. What-
I would suggest moving that particular line item or text down to the background
Right.
section where it's just providing background on the property. In this case, assess value, we go to zoning,
Right.
things like that.
So again, in terms of process, do we want to move on that and vote on it, or do we, everybody just want to shake their heads? How do you want to do it, everybody? All right, well, let's, or you want to move
I'm
that?
indifferent.
Okay, what to move it?
All right, so I will make a motion to make an amendment to the RFI to the sentence part of the IMLD. FY 2023 total short value $6,200,000 to $2,200 under
Okay,
background.
all right. All,
I'd like to speak on the motion, please.
go ahead.
So I oppose this motion for a variety of reasons. First of all, again, philosophically, again, I mentioned this in my opening comments, but I'm not really clear on what the intent is of this document, and I have been very unclear about that. So essentially what the amendment is seeking to do, at least in theory, as we flow into the other aspects per Madeline's comments, is to somehow either imply or make a commitment that the city is going to donate this land and this building and this property or some portion thereof. That seems like a fairly substantial decision. At the same time, when I brought up questions about other aspects of the property, either including or not including them, it's stated to be too specific or we should let the market decide. So it's not clear to me on what is the point. The value of the assessed, specifically on the motion, the assessed value is a matter of public record. It's worth 6.262 million. And either we're trying to make some decisions in this RFI, which by the way is my goal. I think we should be making some of these decisions, but what I can't stand for is having it both ways, where some things are left out and some things are put in, and in order to drive a specific outcome, as was stated by the chair and by other counselors. What are we doing? Are we trying to let the market decide? That seems to be what some indicate is the purpose of this. Just throw it out there and see what comes back is the colloquial way that it's been stated. But I'm certainly not going to commit to giving away the building or the property or any portion thereof at this point, and I wouldn't want to imply that that's the case. If they come back on the pro forma and say, look, our pro forma is built on an assumption that we will get, then that's their submission. So I'm trying to be productive, but this amendment is simply inconsistent with what has been stated. And further on, when we get into the pro forma aspect, I know we're not necessarily there yet, but I will have very similar comments. We're going one way or the other, but I don't think it's fair to have it both ways. I yield.
So, thank you, and I'm gonna respond. So the purpose of this whole effort, the purpose of coming up with an RFI is to be able to put together put together this draft, is to come up with a request for information that goes out to the world, right? Goes out to the developers and says to them this information. We have plenty of examples of RFI that came to us from Christine, our facilitator, and the idea was to put as much information into this draft outline, and then to put it into the RFI so that the world can look at it and say, oh, okay, here are the things we've put into it, our desires. We know what we've laid it all out in here. Very specifically, we've talked about the preservation of the existing gym. Our redevelopment goals are very clear. And at the same time, we give the developer on the other side of it the opportunity to say, I can't do that, or I can do that, or this is what I can or can't do. And I think that to me was what we were driving for, is to understand what a developer can or can't do. I don't see where I don't see why there's such a push to not develop an RFI is how it feels. But I hope that sort of answered your question. And as far as putting in the value, I mean, we can take a vote on it and put it in there or not. It is subject to public scrutiny. And it's the assessed value, I will argue, is not the value of the building. The assessed value is the value. The assessed value is just that. What the building is worth is what somebody will pay for it. But nonetheless, any other comments, particularly on this? Who's that? All right, Councilor Lane.
Hi, thanks. Sorry I couldn't make it. I guess I'm gonna take it one step further. Sending out an RFI is great, but we don't even know, again, the value of what the market will bear. So I don't know why we're skipping this step intentionally, or, is it an oversight that we're not having somebody give us an appraisal of the building? I mean, that's step one. Anytime you're gonna do anything with a property, you have a value. You have a professional that you hire on your behalf, not send it out to contractors, not send it out, to see what the market will bear. That's like asking, me listing a house and have it saying, we're not going to put a price on this. We're going to see what the buyer wants to pay. But they're the only couple of, pieces of, only buyers in town. So we're kind of handcuffed. We just don't have a value on what we have. So I just don't understand how any of this is really a conversation without knowing what the price of the building is. It's whatever the market's going to bear, but we could certainly hire a professional to give us a commercial appraisal for very cheap for three different, whichever way we wanted to slice it. And it's going to cost a fraction of all these other costs that we're talking about. So I guess my stance is I don't really have a recommendation until I know what the value of the property is worth according to a professional. But once we have that, I'd be more than happy to share my thoughts with what I think should happen. So those are my thoughts, and I'll yield for now.
If I may ask you a question, if as the building stands, as it is boarded up, without water, without heat, being the windows being protected so that they're not broken, as the building stands, it's assessed at 2023. How, in your opinion, would an appraisal change that?
So an assessment is not an appraisal. An
I
assessment is based on it's what the town values it at. So to get an appraisal is going to be a whole different ball of wax. That is going to give us the value of what it's worth on the market.
Isn't
So-
that essentially what the RFI will do?
No, I don't think so, because we're expecting people, builders and contractors who want to, potentially have financial gain on this to give us a price. I mean, if you bring me a fixer upper and ask me what I'm going to pay you for it, maybe 100,000, but it could be worth 500,000. But in my opinion, I'll buy it at 100,000 because I'm going to make a ton of money. That's what we're doing here. We're going to rely on people that are going to make a whole lot more money in the end if it goes to the market. So, my thing is, if we had hire somebody, any commercial real estate brokerage out there will gladly send somebody up to do an appraisal. So that's where I wish I just, I wish we could all see that until we in our hands have that value of what, somebody working on our behalf tells us we can get on the open market for this. I mean, they may want to be part of the RFI process as well, but if we just, pay for that, have a professional do it, we know what the value is, that way we have all the pieces of the puzzle. If it makes sense financially, for us, if we get into this project and we take it on as a city asset, to remediate that building is going to be a nightmare. I will tell you right now, it's going to be a nightmare with all the asbestos through it and everything else. That building is riddled with bad things. It's going to cost in remediation God knows what to fix all those problems. On the other hand, on the flip side, if we section off a piece of this, or we sell it, or we do anything else, we want to get top dollar. We've got a lot of problems in the city right now that could easily be solved if this is worth a lot of money on the open market. I mean, you look at, what we're wrestling with, NYS, everything, everything that we're wrestling with and talking about revenue streams. This is probably our biggest piece of revenue stream right here in our hands that we could get a value on and do a lot of things with that money. But we have to open our eyes to the fact of what makes financial sense in the long run for the city. Just because I may say these things and, other people want affordable housing, they want senior housing. I'm not saying we don't need that, but these are revenue streams that we could use to achieve those goals. And at the same time, save our bond tolerance. So there's a lot of remedy here, but it all starts with value. And that's just what I'm saying. Sorry for being so long-winded, but that's my true thoughts right there on the whole thing.
Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Go
So, probably more of the background from the general public. So in my opinion, what sits at the base of this debate is what do we do with the building as? So if we are to sell the building outright to a developer to do whatever any developer wants to do with the building, there's a very valid argument to say that we should know the value of the building, rather than the assessed value, the appraised value of the building. We're selling, which we were selling our homes by. The other side of the argument is we have fairly consistent heard from the public. What they do not want to see happening at the ground school is the public school building, i.e. develop it into $1 million condos, or probably want to phrase that. That the public would generally want to see the building utilized for something other than expensive condos. That would lead us toward affordable housing, and it is not realistic if we are to utilize the building for affordable housing. It's not realistic for us to get the appraised or even assessed value of it. Or likely we may have to sell the building for essentially nothing, to be able to get into or in low affordable building development situation. So, the challenge here again is it's different philosophy. I'm not saying, putting in, selling the building outright at its assessed value, appraised value is the wrong solution. Clearly, Council Lane believes that's the best thing to do. Clearly, other people feel positive is the right thing to do. But this is the inherent problem in the LFI. If we are trying to get to everybody's philosophy, we are never going to get something done. Okay, my stated goal has always been to do something with the building so the building does not crumble to dust while we sit in circles of debate. So, but this is the inherent problem with the RFI is, trying to make all of our philosophies come together in this document. It just does not seem tenable. We've gone around and around.
Well, if I may, that's exactly what is been said all along, is that we suggest this, and then somebody else says, well, what about this? And so we go, okay, put that in there, and somebody else says, well, what about that? And then that goes in there. So what was happening is we were going along, everybody's philosophy went into this, and we started, we had our goals. We sat there and we agreed on our goals. We voted on our goals. And so our goals are in here. Now we get to this far along, and it's like, well, those aren't really our goals. So you're absolutely right. The building, this process is as threatened as that building is. But I will stick to my guns, and I will say that at the end of this meeting, we have to have a document that we can at least get to the planning director, and we'll have a document that's going to go to the body of the whole city council, for us to have these down and dirty debates and just go through what is in front of us and what it'll come down to. It'll come down to votes as to what we're doing. What is that philosophy that we're going to build into this document? On the other side of it, just to talk about affordable housing. Not only is affordable housing just what it is, or senior affordable housing, which is what we're putting out in here, 62 or above. but it also benefits the city as a whole. It's not just, oh, here's some affordable housing, but we downzoned a number of years ago, we downzoned a big swath of this community so that there can't be more than one or two residences on a piece of property. And that has severely affected the ability across a big path, a big swath of our city to add any housing, even in-laws and so on and so forth. So we are now in a moment of pause where the state is saying, okay, you're safe harbored. We're not going to allow 40Bs, which are developments that are a lot of ways, go beyond our control. And so there's a general assumption that affordable housing or more affordable housing in the community is good. But for some reason, I think in this particular building, what we've got going on is we have very serious conflicting philosophies. We have now it's been thrown out that we need more municipal space. There's this desire to own this gym and to rebuild it. There's all these things. And so the only way that we're going to get to it is to at least get something here where we can go to the whole city council and have those arguments. And again, bring in the public more once again. I mean, we've deja vu all over again. I've been to a lot of Brown School meetings, but sorry for my rant. Anybody else want to go forward?
I wanted to comment, but I don't want to overstep the counselors.
Comment, go ahead.
Just in relation to two things that were said a moment ago, if I could just briefly, one is I do think we continue to, because the various different opinions we have amongst the council and other stakeholders, we do have multiple competing, interests, so to speak, in the adaptive reuse of the property collectively, whether it be the land or the building portions. And I continue to think that makes it difficult for one or more of those things to proceed because it is a relatively small property overall. And there are constraints, taking those things into account. It may be that one of those desires can't, fit in the mix, so to speak. That's hard, to hear, but it's maybe hard for all the expectations simultaneously to happen with this property. And I think that's one of the difficulties we've had with moving, and getting something to happen here. Why we have the windows board up right now is a lack of consensus on what is the right composition. As to the appraisal question, I don't necessarily disagree that having an appraisal is beneficial when you think about looking for developers or nonprofits and seeing what they can offer the city and what that means for a dollar amount. But I do agree with the suggestion from the councilor and the trust members that it's probably likely if you're trying to create affordable housing that you can't get the full market value for that and still expect then the units to be affordable, whoever our partner may be. The last point I wanted to make with relative to the appraisals is one that I think mentioned at the committee's last meeting, which is that if we are to attempt to get an appraisal of any kind, the appraiser is still ultimately speaking, looking to the scenario, the parameters that they have to use as the basis for their comps, so to speak. And I think that was spoken to by some others at the last meeting. There really is no way for them to provide an appraisal unless they're looking at just the baseline zoning, for instance. They don't have these other scenarios, and we would effectively have to define what those hypothetical, they call them, scenarios are, where they could then provide one or more hypothetical scenarios as an appraised value of what the market would show. They would not be able to do that without a little bit of guidance from the city, unless we were just basically saying, look at the baseline zoning and tell us only based on that what the appraised value is. They would be ultimately looking for us, circling back to this same discussion, whether it's through this committee or the council as a whole, we would ultimately have to decide what those parameters are for them to give us an appraisal of any meaningful sort.
Thank you. Anybody else? So right now, what we have in front of us, we have moving.
There are two
I'm
hands
sorry.
on Zoom.
Yes, I've got my hand up.
I'm sorry, Jenny, go ahead. Councilor Donnie.
Thank you.
Help me with that.
I do just want to really strongly echo a lot of what was said by Councilor Preston and the chair. That is pretty much where I'm at. I think I've been pretty, clear and open about what I'd like to see for the Brown School. So with that, I kind of wanted, is there still a motion on the floor and can I second it?
I think, did we ever second that?
I don't know.
Well, there was go ahead, you can second it. There's a motion for sure. To move that one line that says the property has a 2013 total assessed value, to move that line to the background. That's the motion that's on the floor. Do you want to second that?
For that particular one? Okay. Yeah, I will.
So that's second. We've had discussion. Is there any more discussion on that particular item? And then we'll.
Yes,
move
I'd
on.
like to speak, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I apologize. I'm a little bit behind in the queue here, so I don't want to rewind the tape too much, but just a couple of comments. The first one is the building is incredibly valuable. You know, I think a core part of this conversation is it does seem like there are different schools of thought. Some people think the building is worth nothing. I think the building and the property are worth a lot, and that does include the building. The 70s portion of the building, of which there were many other things built in the city at the same time, has a lot of value. And then there's just the non-monetary, the value to the city. What does it mean for the city, for our goals? And then there's been what I think is some, to speak to the motion specifically, so I can skip some of my other comments, but I think we're missing the point, because people are calling philosophies what some of us view as what we want the outcome to be. The philosophy that was decided upon, against my wishes, but that's what the committee decided, was that this would be a broad brush document. And the motion on the floor right now is to strip information out or to bury the value at the end of the document. That is an inconsistent view with what this committee decided this document was going to be, which was throw it out there and see what it is, what it's going to be. You are proposing to try and tailor the RFI in this case to a specific outcome, but you're not willing, and I'm using you as a general term, that you don't want to do that in other cases. And I just want to point out that's really inconsistent, and it is unfair as well. And I think we should reject this amendment. There's nothing wrong with including the tidbit that there's an assessed value there. And if the goal of this truly is to get as broad a response as possible, then you leave it in there and you see what the market comes back with. That's what apparently has been stated several times is the goal. If an affordable housing developer needs to have the property for free, then they will show that in their pro forma. If they don't need that, then so be it. And I think, you know, that's just more consistent with what has been stated, the what I consider the philosophy, meaning the underlying assumptions of this document would be.
So if I may comment, the idea is not to take that out, it's simply to move it. Because
Right, to the end where it's less import. I mean, you know, it was put up here because we had a long conversation in the last meeting about appraisals and so forth, and that's wrought with its own concerns about how can you get an accurate appraisal. I understand all those considerations. I respect the Ward 6 councilor's professional experience, so he's got a point on that, but that's why this was put in there in this position. And now we want to diminish it, and we also want to diminish potentially future on. We'll have another conversation shortly about the pro forma, diminishing that need. Why? Because we want to make it more attractive, more tailored for a specific outcome, which is not, again, which is just confusing. It's confusing to me. So if we want to have a specific outcome, great. Let's talk about what all the pieces of that outcome would be, and then bake them all in the same way, which has been my point since the start. So I'm done on this amendment. I don't need to comment further. You know, presumably it sounds like one can count to 3 at this point.
I just have one quick question. What is our predetermined, how is it that we're slanting this towards any type of predetermined outcome? We put out our objective that to some degree is our desired outcome, but we've also given any type of developer an opportunity to say why. All responses should, if they can't do what we're asking, we're giving them clear opportunity to tell us what they can or can't do. So how yes, we're guiding them, but if they can't do it, they can't do it. So how is it that we're I don't understand how
because I mean, look, I mean, I'm eager to make my suggestions for red lines as well, but the very first sentence of the document, the city of Newburyport is preparing to offer the former Brown School at 40 Milk for adaptive reuse for production of affordable housing. That sentence in and of itself, it's wrong. First of all, what is the Brown School at 40 Milk Street? We failed to define the property. Solely for the production of affordable housing implies that is the single and sole goal. But section 3 has numerous things, which by the way needs work as well, that are indicated as goals. And we keep sliding into wanting to have the discussion about which goal is more important than the other. which I always have felt was the most important conversation to have. And as I've stated, when I sat on these committees in 2017, we actually had a more Councillor Lane centric type discussion where the number one goal was maximizing value. We no longer seem to feel that way, but we've yet to have the debate. So on this specific amendment, all I'm asking is we reject the amendment, leave the assessed value and let it play out, because that is already water under the bridge. I don't like it that that's how this RFI is shaping, but it is what it is. And I've given up on that. And I just think starting to strip things out that are add some level of specificity in this case, the assessed value, or in later cases with respect to the gym are incongruous with what we've as a body have decided this document should reflect.
Is there any other comment? I'll make one more, unless there's somebody else who wants to go ahead of me. Go right ahead,
Couple of comments. Firstly,
on this amendment.
yes, one broad, in that I feel terrible that we're not going to give it a public.
They're gonna get it.
For 2 hours. of sitting
Hopefully not.
Yes, they are. I mean, it's clear that this has gone on for a very long time. And I was very bad, probably even to sit there for all of it. My secondarily, reacting to Councilor Z's point, I happen to agree with it. Very clear that I have stated my goal here is to put affordable housing in the ground school. But I think we are, once again, to use the analogy, absolutely leading the witness. The objective, what is the opportunity? City of Newburyport is referring to off the ground school at 40 Mill Street for adaptive use for the production of affordable housing. We are leading the witness from the very first sentence.
And that was the
I'm
vote.
not disagreeing with the goal, but what I'm saying is if we're trying to produce a document that is sending this out into the world to see what will come back to us, we are absolutely in the very first sentence hammering down to it.
But we voted on it. But we voted on that. That was discussed in the committee, the ad hoc, that was discussed. None of this is made up. This is all the result of the conversation, and we voted on this, and we said yes. And so now here we are at the end, and we're going, well, wait a minute, I don't know that I really meant that. So that's what kind of is a little bit, puzzling.
With due respect, Chair, that's not what we agreed upon. We agreed on a list of a potential list of possible things specifically without any specific order of importance. That was the subject of much conversation. But that is not what this first sentence says. This first sentence tells the reader there is everything else it's there, but frankly, this is really the thing that we care about. And I just want to be clear. I wish, again, we had a time machine and we could have that debate in a more meaningful way. But this, what I recall from the meeting and what I think the minutes reflect is a broad brush conversation on a list of development goals. And that's what section 3 is dedicated to. And it does get to section 3 later on in the paragraph, but you've really broadsided all of the other redevelopment goals in favor of a singular one. Now, I'm not having the debate about affordable housing right now. That's not, I think, the debate that we're having. I'm just with the at-large counselor who just spoke. That's not, in my humble view, what this committee came to. We came to a list of things, and the committee did not see fit to debate and prioritize them in order to say we would give this one up to get this more of this or vice versa. And this is the outcome. This is the product. So I'm just asking for us to be consistent all the way through.
Point taken. And so, if I think that then if the objective or if the opportunity then is that directive, which I'm not sure that I disagree, but if that opportunity sentence is so directive, and you're right, we did have a list, we had them in no particular order, so maybe the discussion, maybe not tonight, but maybe when this document goes to the council of the whole, maybe that's when we, go ahead and move and redefine the opportunity. So, I don't think we're going to be here, even if we're here midnight. I don't think we're going to get that result. Yes, go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry. Please. Yeah.
But I can understand Councilor Lane's point that in that first paragraph, it does say, he takes it out for the direction of local housing. And I don't have a problem with that, as long as it continues to say, for blah, 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 looking for, the redevelopment goals outlined in section 3 below. In section 3, it does list housing.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't feel that if it's taken us 45 minutes to argue over that one, those 4
Yeah.
words, I don't think those are necessarily.
Okay, so now we have two things we have to discuss.
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to say that I'm rethinking the process, Chair. I'd just like an opportunity to state what my concerns are. I'm not sure if this motion thing, like you said, I think this could take much longer than the time that we're afforded. Just
agree.
speaking for myself, I would just appreciate the opportunity to go through the document and just at least state what my concerns are, even if I'm not without motions and all that. But I'm just stating my thought.
I got Councilor Donahue wants to comment, but let me throw this back out then. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just go through these points? And then accept the document as it is, move it over to the General Government Committee and then to the Committee of the City Council and the Committee of the Whole with the public comment that we'll receive and do it that way. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Yes,
I'm fine. Yes.
All right. So who had their hand up next and wants to,
Councilor Donahue. I think.
Councilor Donahue, you want
no, I actually had it up by accident because I didn't put it down before.
to? So
But I was gonna say, I can retract my second if Council Preston has the appetite to
Yes.
retract her motion.
Okay.
And one
Yeah.
more point. An alternative way to move forward is to strip this document down to basically, we're looking for adaptive reuse of the ground school. Here's the background and what's the solicitation process, and then bring that to general government. I think that you'll want to do to move forward. Again, is it success? I call it success, but I think the debate is going to be the same, whether we sit here and debate each of the points and pros and cons. While general community, each of those, we've talked about them a lot. Or the alternative would be to just strip the document down, send it to general government here.
Well, I don't know that. Right. I don't, let's get a little bit deeper into that. I think that also when we look at the efforts by the Ward 2 counts, the Ward 1 counselor, we should go through those as well very quickly. I think that perhaps then both of these documents, the one that we have in front of us, the one that is Councilor Zed's document, those go to general government and let general government do that stripping. And
You do this for hours.
yeah, and then that way we can get the public information, we can throw that into the bowl and stir it all up. Go ahead.
If I may, again, I'll defer to the council. Obviously here, it's your, baby, so to speak, in terms of most of this framework here. But my sense is that to the conversation that's been had to date is because there are so many different opinions amongst the councilors and then, and the public that we're hearing from over what should happen here, maybe because this isn't currently committee of the whole, and we don't necessarily have directly all the inputs that we might need here to close that loop. And there is some discussion about whether or not this might be referred back to the general government, for instance. And we have the general government committee is meeting tomorrow night on a sort of related order. I'm wondering if it does actually make more sense to have the entire discussion there where all these parameters and these things can be debated rather than getting into a line by line in the weeds, editing type discussion with only a subset of the council, given that there's such desire to have every council be able to weigh in on this.
Thank you. Amen to that. So unless, I think that at this point then, given that nice synopsis, which is short by your standards, which is great.
I'll never consider these.
Yep, Councilor Z, do you want to comment on that?
I was just going to literally just sprout off my concerns with each section, but if that's the direction you want to go, I will yield.
Are you comfortable with that?
I just want my day in court, so if that's
Yeah.
in general government, then I will take it up there. If you'd like to do a little bit more tonight, whatever, I just want to have, I mean, I did spend some time. I know everybody did on this document. I know there's lots of debate to be had. But I just really, my parting thought really is just separating the debate from what you want the outcome potentially to be with the how the RFI is or should be crafted, because there are some, they can have a nexus, but they don't have to. And, you know, and I say that in the sense that I want them to have a nexus, but that was, again, not the decision of this group. So whatever direction we go, really be great to have some that ground assumption set so that the rules for debate are clear. And if it's to get the specific outcome, then, you know, expect more conversation on the gym and the value. If the end result is give a more broad thing, then expect more conversation on stripping out detail and leaving it that way, but not to have it both ways. So I yield. Thank you.
And with due respect to the document that you provided, I mean, I just now opened it up. I don't know why I missed it.
Right. Well, with due respect, I mean, you send it 24 hours before the meeting. One can only do so much. So I tried my best. I do apologize to the committee that it was sent out at 6:30, but I do have a day job and I have other things I have to attend to. So I did my best. And if that lends to going to general government, then maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, Councilor, I was not complaining. I was saying that I was commenting on the work on that. And yes, I asked the planning director a number of days ago for the outline. So we're all a little bit behind on our timing. So I was honoring your document, and would prefer the opportunity to go through it other than looking at it right now in front of me.
Thank you.
So I think with that, what I would be appropriate then, if we're deciding that we're going to move the Councilor Z's document, the document that we have in front of us here, we're going to move that to general government. I think then it's appropriate to go ahead and open up to the public and take that comment, take that back to general government and start again. So, go ahead.
I disagree, but I think in fairness, we should hear from the other members of the ad hoc, because ultimately you're getting, you're a part of this body, you're not going to be a part of the council debate. So, former Councilor Devlin, I just sort of call him Councilor Devlin. The former Councilor Devlin, obviously not here. He would be the other.
He's not no longer a member of this. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
But yeah, it would be.
Yeah, right.
That's the chair.
But I think that we know your positions. We've had your input. We know where you are and we know where to find you, right? So it's not like we're cutting you out. I think there was a lot of your efforts were contributory, right? I mean,
I appreciate that. And bring it back.
Yeah. All right. So we're seem to be in some form of agreement here.
Sure.
Shockingly. Maybe then it would be appropriate to go ahead and open it up. I'd like to hear from those of you in the room. You've heard a lot just now, and you've got to see, inside of our dresser drawers a little bit as to where we are with this process. So if you have thoughts on what we're doing and where we're going with this, that can help us or guide us. I've heard from a lot of people around the Brown School over the years. I've heard a lot about the Brown School over the years. I know you're all very much concerned about the Brown School. I'd like to open it up to the public. Anybody have any thoughts? You can step up and tell us what you're thinking. Anybody? Or you just say, listen, yes, feel free.
John Fair.
Come on up, John. Yes, you got it.
4850 Milk Street,
Perfect.
in butter to the Brown School property.
Yep.
Just very briefly, were it possible going forward, when it is appropriate for the public to sit in on these meetings, whether or not we're invited to make comments, quite my point. It must be a much better process of communicating with us as to the dates and times of these meetings.
Okay.
I don't know how that happens.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm relying on Jen.
Okay.
She does a pretty good job. There was a meeting, James Snow, when was that? The 3rd of February. Something your notes came out on Facebook today, I think it was. I had no idea the meeting had taken place or that public comments were welcome. That's just a general.
Just to answer to that, though, if you use the city website, you can get announcements of meetings.
I do, but unless I get a prompt to go to the website,
No, you can go through the website. I'll talk to you offline and I'll show you how to you can get notices of meetings that come to your email.
okay,
And you can get notices of all the meetings that are happening.
that's, thank you.
And I'll talk to you offline.
Second question is, who will determine who is going to be receiving the RFI?
That conversation is going to take place in the general government meeting.
When we say the world, so the universe, which is fine, I'm just curious as to how the universe of the world is ultimately going to be defined. I just want to know who the RFIs are
Oh,
going to go.
right. You can help me with that.
Sure. Well, again, just per some prior dialogue, I'm sure you haven't been here for some of the committee meetings, but it's been discussed that this would be broadly and openly distributed. So we'd advertise this, make sure that folks are aware of it. For instance, we can central register, we can look at. What's it? We can do it in the newspaper, we can do it in the central register. We can basically send out in the places that people, developers, nonprofits are typically looking for solicitations like this. We also can reach out to parties that have already reached out to us. It's been suggested before we reached out to those parties back in 2017 that were interested in the property then. So we're going to try to distribute it. Generally speaking, I'll defer to the council here, but our plan is to try to distribute it as widely as possible, but also to get as many responses back that are responsive.
Absolutely should be the end goal.
Yeah.
I'm just not quite clear on how we're going to get there, but I've made my comment. Among the people who will be receiving the RFI, would they include this group known as the Newburyport Housing Authority? I've been tracking what's been going on with the Brown School and not going on with the Brown School since 2014. It was a very interesting party. Never once in the ensuing 8 or 9 years have I ever heard any reference whatsoever to the Newburyport Housing Authority, and they are specifically charged with the business of providing housing for low-income people.
Through the chair,
Please, go ahead.
through the chair, I could probably speak to that.
Just one other thing. The other question is SHP management, who did a tremendous job.
That's where you're supposed to stand.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. With the James Steam Mill, and continue to do from the observation, they do a tremendous job maintaining that facility, both in terms of welcoming new people and dealing with it otherwise. I've never heard any mention made of the city of Newburyport being interested in talking to the developer who's done such an outstanding job. That's it.
I can't speak to that particular point right there, but like I said, the idea was to send it out broadly and ask all parties that are interested, right, including those. As to the housing authority, I can't speak directly to the director there and then the housing authority itself, but I have had discussions with the director, and my understanding, and I'll defer to her, but my understanding is that while they do have the ability to operate the housing units, they don't necessarily have the capital funds to create new units here and renovate the building to create them here in this building. So while they might be a tool for the operation long term, they can't necessarily help us get to the short term or near term effort to renovate the building.
Yeah, I don't know if it was my unilateral problem. I do whatever I needed to do to have somebody from the housing authority attending these meetings and providing input where it's appropriate. They have expertise within the city of Newburyport, body politic. They know how to, to deal with the issues that are tantamount to providing housing for low-income people. And they seem to be successful at it. So to the extent that it would be appropriate to do so, and they were willing, if you could engage them in some appropriate fashion, I'm not saying that they're in a position to do certain things as far as developing the Brown School, but they have insights, experience, and it's immediate and it's local.
Noted. Yeah.
Affordable housing trust, I appreciate it. Bring them in.
You know.
You guys.
Yeah.
Represent your interests. And say, listen, if I have any. What I'm saying, that makes any sense. Get them to get involved, contribute whatever they can. To the process.
You bet.
Because they're local and they're expert. Rather than offline conversations. Just a thought. And then again, when people develop a successful game scheme, do a terrific job and make money. And it's making money. Somehow.
Noted. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other thoughts from anybody? Please, please.
My name's Christian, at 29 Hill Street.
Thank you.
Couple questions and then some comments as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing up the housing authority. So I understand that transferring this property or getting the housing authority involved in somewhat is potentially some state funding. Know what legs that has, but I'd like to explore that. I think that the housing authority is a track record. At sold the building, the Heller complex, and then the other units around 42. So we have a track record for this. And so to what extent they've been involved, I think that bears discussion. Secondly, curious to what extent the land use, this could be a land lease option things explored. 50 year, 99 years, like that.
Can discuss.
Okay, so I'd love to hear a little more stuff from the previous conversation. And then last piece was doing something about the ground school because it's sitting there, it wasn't the only option is to sell it. Before it disintegrated with us, there's some other options. I moved to town 8 years ago. First place that I set foot in was the ground school, played basketball. And then 2 gentlemen for a couple of them. And that was when my community here. My son went to do indoor soccer and indoor basketball. He went to the birthday party there. He's met with friends there. And it's a spot for Boy Scouts, for Girl Scouts, could be for AA meetings or online meetings. And that's done. I think there's multiple uses that can be done with that. And cavalierly disregarded as a little thing plans. I think that's wasting an opportunity to continue to accelerate community things for the group. So my vote is to, if I had a vote, absolutely look at that gym as a community asset and not something that we say, yeah, you know, it doesn't fit in. I do want to thank Councilor Reed for his insistence on including the gym as a portion of this RFI. And I'd love for the portion to be, it's as if at all possible, to have that portion removed because it's crucial in the community. That's all.
And just to respond a little bit, I don't think anything has been done very cavalierly at all.
Okay. I still think that cavalierly disregarded would be very consistent.
I agree. Please. There you go.
I'm Sue McKittrick, I'm at Bayford Street, and I'm here because lack of affordable housing in Newburyport has become very personal to me. I know of one person who's about to be homeless, a senior. I know of 2 other seniors who are homeless. I know of 4 people that have moved in with family members and the dependents and they've moved in with family members and it hasn't. There are others and many others, good friends who have moved out of the city because they can't afford this. Okay, so affordable housing is a real problem here. We know that. And it's not just the people that I know. There are 25% of the seniors in Newburyport. 25% live in extreme poverty. Incomes under $20,000. These people need a place to live. They live for all their lives. Now, community is, or value, is not all about money. that the school will bring in, or the money that will be spent. The asset isn't just about the gym, it's about the community that we build and we welcome our people, all people into the community. Our asset in the Brown School is huge, and I'm not thinking about it in money terms that the appraisal value is, that it can be affordable housing price. It can be affordable housing. In Plattsburgh, this group knows that in places where affordable housing has been done, we've adopted the use of schools, and it's been very successful. The problems of parking and other things just melted away as the development of the part. Now, most of us are not experts in affordable housing development, but we do have experts who are residents in this community, including two of them who are sitting. And we do have leaders in the community that have considerable expertise in affordable housing development. We need to listen to them. We need to listen to them if we are intent on building some affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, my name is Penny Buller. I live at 2 Chickney Lane in Newburyport. 2 Chickney or Catney. I'm still
Still trying to figure out where you live.
depends on if you're French, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to speak on behalf of, as part of whatever the plan is for the Brown School, preserving the gym or rebuilding the gym. And the main objective there is around that community. And I truly believe that having an indoor community space like that, like the basketball court, it creates retention and that stickiness of the people who live and resident in Newburyport. Can speak on behalf of them. You know, his all his friends over there, he plays basketball there, and that he didn't have that kind of inlet into this community. I don't know if you had a chance to meet all of you and to and so that, and I think that's just piece you can't put dollar amount onto. And I do think that, I mean, if we got rid of the Brown School basketball, we would be getting rid of the only indoor sports facility for anyone to be able to use. And I think that'd be a really poor missing. And I just wanted to mention too, because Kristen, you mentioned about all the other activities that happen there. I've got a 2 and a 4-year-old. They've gone to, play gym there many times. I met moms and other parents there. It's just such a good community for different reasons. So I just want to add that. Thank you.
But just a quick question, was that with NYS or was that some other opportunity?
I think that I think it was
Just checking.
the arrive a 2 and a 4-year-old and very limited.
Well, 2 years ago, I doubt that they were in there, right? I think COVID was predominant. And
Yeah, it was before COVID that was, we were doing a lot with our 4-year-old.
anybody else? Hello?
David Webster, 37 Broad Street. I would encourage you to lead the witness. When you get to the next stage, when you get to the committee of the whole, I think it's important that you all, on the broader committee and this city in general, figure out some priorities for this asset. I think putting out an RFI, an open-ended RFI, it's just going to lead to more frustration down the road. You're going to get developers who respond with all different kinds of proposals, market rate, affordable housing, market down, and what. And I think that if we take the time to get to that point, and the city has not figured out its priorities, it's a waste of effort. Because I think you're going to go through the same exercise they went through tonight. And you say, well, we don't know what our priorities are, so we're going to It seems it's already happened once.
Have you had an opportunity to look at this, though? Have you seen this document?
I have,
Okay, just curious.
but the discussion about,
Oh,
I understand where you came out and why you came out the way you did tonight. But I think when the RFI ultimately goes out, I think it's important to stress that affordable housing is required in place. But that's the bottom line.
Thank you.
That building is an asset of the cities, regardless of what you decide you want to be the outcome. The city is making an investment by contributing that asset to whatever gets developed there. And if you decide that you want to go for top dollar, that's one type of investment. If you decide that you want to help produce affordable housing, it's a different type of investment. But they're both investments in the community. And I think it's important that you get your own minds straight, what kind of investment you want to make and what you want the outcome to be. So I would encourage you to stress the.
Thank you. Others? James?
James Nolan, I'm Garden Street. I've been to just about all of these meetings and I can understand the frustration, but I think really and truly, it boils down to the fact that the way the economy is right now, when families are being pulled apart because of money right now, we really as a city need to set our priorities. I take a look at this room that we're sitting in. This is supposed to be council chambers. It's also the passport department. And we don't have enough room for all the people in the clerk's office. So it's the clerk's little pool. I really and truly think we need to stop thinking all the time in terms of new buildings and things. We need to take a look and take an assessment and say, how much space do we have? What are we in dire need of? We shouldn't have offices in the city hall that people have to walk through somebody else's office to get to their office. That's one priority. We definitely have issues with affordable housing. And when we say affordable, what does that word mean? If you're talking $1,500 to $1,800 a month for an apartment, that's not affordable. And so let's make that clear as part of the process. I really feel that this process has been putting the cart before the horse. The counselors have not had that, having all the information in front of them. What is the needs, what are the goals that we're trying to fill, and figuring out what's one, what's two, what's three. We instead keep bebopping all around, and every time people talk about maybe saving the gym, oh, no, we can't have that. I think it's time. And the other thing that has really upset me terribly is that there has been little to no public comments. And in the write-up that had this ad hoc committee formed, there was supposed to be a tour of the building. There was supposed to be meetings with the public who were invested in it, meeting like the neighbors and other public meetings. None of that has happened. And we're trying to write an RFI and put it out to the world, and we don't even know what we want. And I think the gentleman summed it up very nicely that we're liable to get, more arguments because of how they come in and what they're looking for. So I think that, we have a lot of things. The new services, they don't have a home right now. Could the gym be fixed in a short period of time and put them there temporarily? We have some wonderful students who came and spoke, and guess what? The thing that made me smile the most, they really liked the Brown School. They were really kind of happy there. Now, granted, is it the place for them to be permanently? No, but it's better for them to have some part of a home than to be homeless. So I think there's a lot of important decisions. I think we need a lot more public comment to let people express, because a lot of times somebody will come up with the most wonderful gem in that 9,000 offers of information, and we need to listen to that. So I'm asking that we not put this RFI out, don't even consider it until we have explored all the avenues, we know what our needs are, what way could we possibly fill
most of them, some of them, to the best of our ability with what we have in that wonderful asset building on, ground school, in ground school, but thanks.
Anybody else? Certainly.
Silence here, 16 Temple Street, 2 years. Fine. Joined for the ground school, graphic community. But the one thing I really want to stress is the importance of a youth center, you know. Today, my kids are older, but I got nieces and nephew, young, very young, don't leave the house, just want to play computer at home and they. And I think the importance of a community center for young people to just walk out of the house and go join it and play and go out there and can really influence. You know, the whole. I think it's a lot of value that building. Email and for young kids and even for adults, you know, for me, it, there'll be, a lot of people, but especially for young kids, it's always one that helps give them opportunity to go somewhere.
Others, anyone?
No hands remotely.
All right, so, just for the record, close the public comment. So I think what we decided is that we're going to, take those comments, which we'll get from the director.
Sure, I can't say it's 100, it's clear to me how that would work its way into modifications of the RFI
Well-
versus sending this maybe to the general government committee.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, so I think that what we're gonna do is if it's agreeable to all, is that we're gonna take the revised 221 document and the red line Ward 1 counselor's version. So these two documents, we're going to send them over to the General Government Committee, and this it was actually going to be in the packet, at least this document, and maybe we can get a little bit of either a late file or something from the clerk to get the red line from the Ward 1 counselor into the packet. We'll go to General Government and we'll work forward from there. And I would encourage everyone to make use of the city's website. You can get announcements of meetings, and they come in via email, and they remind you, you can go to the city website. You can look for the General Government Committee. The General Government Committee meets, generally speaking, on the Monday following the City Council meeting. So the City Council meets the second and last Monday of the month. General Government meets the following Monday evening at 6:30, 5:30. So you can see that on the website, and the agendas usually is in there. If there is no agenda, there's a possibility that meeting's not happening. We try to cancel the meetings if nothing is on the docket. So we're getting used to this, so we do make mistakes, but that's when the meeting is posted to be. The meeting following the city council, the Monday following the city council meeting. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Anything else? Any councilors? Byron? Sorry.
Yeah, just a point of order. There's a general government meeting tomorrow.
Yes,
5.
that there is, but this won't get discussed.
Right. I just don't want to confuse people.
Right.
So
Councilor Lane?
I just
Councilor
had,
Z?
yeah, just one other comment. And this is the dissolution of this ad hoc. Is that accurate?
When this meeting closes, this committee does no longer exist.
Okay. Are you looking for a motion to the effect of any of those things?
Sorry,
I don't think that we need a motion on that. Go ahead.
I don't say that you would need one here based on what you've got on the record already, which shows February as being the time frame, a conclusion here. And I think that the remaining order that might be going forward dealing with general government will probably pick up from there. So.
Yeah, we do need to do that. We need the motion as the two documents and the minutes.
Oh, yeah. Say that we did.
Oh, yeah, and we also need to approve last meeting's minutes.
Well, here, so I make a motion to, remove the request for information draft outline dated February 21, 2023 to the full council without. And then we'll do, as well as the red line version received from council C today, February 20.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that? No. Roll call?
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Lane,
Yes.
Counselor Zede,
Yes.
Counselor Preston,
Yes.
Counselor Vogel.
Yes. Okay, so that's happening. Before we close the meeting, can we get a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call on that.
Sorry, Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Lane,
Yes.
Counselor Zede,
Yes.
Counselor Preston,
Yes.
Counselor Vogel.
Yes. And before the motion to adjourn, any other comment, any other thoughts, anything else that, so that we can leave this meeting with a sense of accomplishment?
I'll just say, it's disappointing to me that we weren't more productive. But I feel like this is the right, I don't think we were gonna get any farther forward, unfortunately, so I do, I'm extremely hopeful that we can do more in, general government, so that's a bigger body, so see what happens, but I do firmly believe we weren't gonna get anywhere further here, so.
Yeah. I think it's also just, if I can, friendly amendment, since we already voted on it, that is not only general government, but the committee of a whole.
Yeah, I'm assuming. That's why it's a bigger body.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, please continue to stay in touch with us, and we appreciate your times. I mean, you know, the sitting, these can be both joyful and stressful, so.
The rest of us are pretty blind. Good one, good comments. And your expertise are super nice.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. I mean, it's not like, it's a nuanced business. That not everybody knows.
All right, motion to adjourn.
I'll second that on that.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Lane,
Yes.
Counselor Zede,
Yes.
Counselor Preston, Counselor Vogel.
Yes, we're adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
You too.